Okay, hello everybody. Over there in Palermo, this is Jan Marco Müller from the European Commission. I coordinate science diplomacy at DG Research and Innovation, and I thank you very much for this invitation to speak at this forum on science diplomacy at the annual conference of the European Academy of Religion. Unfortunately, I cannot be with you in Palermo, so I will provide this little video message to inform you about the European framework on science diplomacy. And for this, I'm going to show you a few slides. If you just allow me a second, then there we go. So what is science diplomacy? I want to define it as science diplomacy is the direct or indirect use of science, scientific evidence, scientific cooperation to advance diplomatic goals. So the ultimate goal is to support diplomacy. And why is science diplomacy increasingly important and creeping up on a political agenda? First, we are faced with a new geopolitical reality for the European Union, with an imperialist Russia in the east that tries to move borders in Europe with military force, with an increasingly assertive China. But on the other side, of course, also Western allies that are not as reliable as they used to be. And all of this happens against the background of disruptive technologies that have become a geopolitical currency that can shift the balance of power in the world. And it's not just digital technologies like quantum, like AI. It's, of course, also gene editing, it's mRNA vaccines, etc. And again, this happens against the background of global challenges that are becoming increasingly systemic and interconnected, which actually call for more cooperation between nations and not for more polarization and fragmentation, but for working together. Now, against this background, science is increasingly becoming a diplomatic player, which institutions like the IPCC, like IPBES, or the newly created International Science Council, the Science Advisory Board of the UN Secretary General, etc. So science is increasingly a player in its own right in this diplomatic game. And I said science diplomacy has become much more important and much more popular. We are not starting from scratch, obviously, at European level. Already a couple of years ago, the European Commission funded a couple of research projects on science diplomacy that developed the methodologies that then led to the foundation of the European Union Science Diplomacy Alliance as a main platform of the various players in the field. But also the European institutions themselves are increasingly looking at this issue. What we have seen is that more and more member states of the European Union are strengthening scientific technological capacities and the ministries of foreign affairs. You see them in all different forms and shapes popping up in foreign ministries. Many EU member states are developing national science diplomacy strategies. And at a European level, already 3 years ago, we adopted the global approach to research and innovation, which is the international science strategy of the EU. And if you look at the table of contents, then you see that, first of all, it starts talking about values and principles like academic freedom, like research ethics, like equality, diversity, inclusion, like open science. So issues where actually religious studies have an important role to play. It then goes on to talk about reciprocity, and only in the last part to talk about the cooperation with priority countries and regions. And already the global approach included a passage around science diplomacy, saying that this helps the EU to project soft power and pursue our economic interests and values more effectively. A year ago, the 27 research ministers met in Santander in Spain, and they all discussed for the first time science diplomacy at the political level and asked us to create an ambitious European framework for science diplomacy. Now, obviously, bringing science and diplomacy together in the European Union is not an easy task. It starts with the fact that diplomats and scientists have a different understanding of what actually Europe is. Of course, for the diplomat, it's the EU27 of the Common Foreign and Security Policy. For scientists, it's the European research area with everybody between Iceland and Israel. Obviously, when we talk about science diplomacy in the EU, we need to talk to 27 research ministries and 27 foreign ministries, which makes already 54 ministries. Also, from an institutional architecture point of view, it's not easy to bring them together because foreign policy is predominantly national competence. Unanimity is required. whereas research policy is a shared competence. Obviously, we need to avoid all sorts of diplomatic geopolitical pitfalls, and we are dealing with different cultural mindsets of scientists and diplomats, and everybody needs to get out of the respective comfort zone. End of last year, we organized the first European Science Diplomacy Conference, where we brought together the key players, both from the science spheres and the diplomacy spheres, to talk to each other on how could such a European framework for science diplomacy look like. And we've developed a structure which we're currently working on, which is based on 4 pillars. First is the question how to use science diplomacy strategically to tackle geopolitical challenges in a fragmented multipolar world. So there we're talking about war and peace, about research security, around technological sovereignty, around multilateralism, etc. Then we have a second pillar, which looks at how to make European diplomacy more strategic, effective, resilient through scientific evidence and foresight. So we're looking, for instance, at the science advisory ecosystems and foresight. Then the third pillar is around how to strengthen science diplomacy in delegations and embassies, fostering the EU global science diplomacy outreach. Think of role of science attaché, think of diaspora scientists, alumni of mobility schemes. And then, of course, the question of how to build capacity for European science diplomacy, both training scientists and diplomats, but also thinking of the people who do the translation job at the interface. And then obviously we need to look at some overarching issues like definition, like scope, like the EU added value, but also issues like multilingualism, for instance. What is happening right now is we have established 5 working groups. And we had an open call for expression of interest, and within 3 weeks, 600 people applied. So it was a huge success. And what we're doing is here, we have created working groups that roughly 50-50 are set together between science and diplomacy, and both have a scientist and a diplomat as a co-chair. They act in a personal capacity, and what we really want to do here is in a co-creation process that the scientists and the diplomats discuss and develop recommendations for European framework, and we expect the results of these working groups by end of June, which will then inform a potential future policy document. Now, to finish my talk is how do religious studies come into play here? And prior to my current job, I worked at the European External Action Service as a science and technology advisor. And on my very first day of work at the ES, I encountered that they had placed the Office of the Advisor for Science and Technology next to the Advisor for Religious Affairs and Faith, which is a bit counterintuitive, but actually it makes a lot of sense because religious affairs and faith drive in many ways also foreign and security policies. And a practical example was when we were planning the rollout of the COVID-19 vaccination campaigns. And there was a survey in Africa, in various African countries, and people were asked, what is more effective against COVID-19, prayers or vaccines? And as you can see, in a number of countries, more than 80% of the population said prayers are more effective. So it's quite obvious that there is a lot of scope for science, for religious studies, for theology, working together with faith-based communities to solve these global challenges, such as, in this case, a global pandemic. And in that sense, I wish you all the best for your discussions over there in Palermo. Thank you very much.